Have you ever loved someone so deeply, and yet still felt completely invisible in their eyes? You show up, you give, you care, you twist yourself into softness, into sweetness, into silence, hoping that this time, maybe this time, someone will stay, that they'll choose you, that they'll see something in you worth holding on to. And even when they do, even when they say they love you, some part of you still doesn't believe it. Not really, not fully, because deep inside, a quiet voice still whispers, "But am I enough?" This wound isn't obvious. It doesn't arrive with thunder. It doesn't announce itself as trauma. It's slower than that, quieter, polite. Even it shows up in the boardroom, when you hesitate to speak, in the bedroom when you shrink to keep someone close, in the mirror when you achieve everything and still feel like a fraud. It's not that you didn't try. It's that you were taught, without words, that love had to be earned, that your worth depended on performance, that someone else had to see you before you could see yourself, that this is not just insecurity. It is the invisible hunger for a father's approval, not always the biological father. Sometimes, yes, but other times, it's the symbolic father, the masculine gaze, the inner protector, the one who bestows worth through his presence. When that presence is missing, inconsistent, or emotionally cold, the soul begins to starve, not for affection, but for recognition. It's not about being touched, it's about being seen. When a girl grows up without the gaze that says, "You are worthy," simply because you exist, she learns to become whatever it takes to earn it. She becomes the helper, the achiever, the peacemaker, the one who makes herself useful, so she doesn't feel disposable. She grows into a woman who collects gold stars and degrees, who over-delivers at work and apologizes before speaking. She's smart, intuitive, endlessly capable, and yet beneath it all, she's still asking one silent question: is it enough yet? Can I stop performing now? This isn't weakness. It's the echo of something ancient, something inherited, a pattern, not a personality, a wound, not an identity. It doesn't matter if your father was absent, emotionally shut down, too busy, too harsh, or simply didn't know how to reflect your worth. The result is the same, a longing that turns inward, a girl who grows up learning to earn love by erasing herself. And here's the thing, she probably doesn't even know that's what she's doing, because the hunger doesn't announce itself as pain. It wears the mask of ambition, of competence, of control. It looks like success, but underneath the sharp lines and perfect smile is a deep exhaustion, a quiet grief, a desperate, aching need to finally be told, "I'm proud of you," just because you are. And when that doesn't happen, she begins to chase it in bosses, in partners, in spiritual teachers, in strangers online. But no matter how much she achieves, how much she gives, how much she sacrifices, it never quite fills her, because the child within isn't looking for applause. She's looking for reassurance, for that first mirror to finally reflect her worth back to her. Carl Jung said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent." And often, that burden includes the silence of a father who never learned how to give what he never received. This silence becomes structure. It becomes the foundation of how she relates to love, to power, to herself. She becomes a woman who builds walls and calls it independence, who earns affection and calls it love, who feels everything but says nothing, because her emotions were too much for the first man who ever mattered. This is the invisible architecture of the father wound. It lives not in what was done, but in what was missing. And the most tragic part, she doesn't even know she's still waiting for a look, a word, a moment that will finally make her feel chosen. But no one is coming, not in the way she imagines. And that, though it may sound heartbreaking, is the beginning of her freedom. Because once she realizes that she has been chasing the gaze that was never there, she can finally begin to give herself what was missing. The father wound doesn't stay in childhood. It follows her, like a quiet shadow, not always seen, but always felt. It shows up in the way she loves, the way she works, the way she waits to be chosen. She may not remember the exact moment her father looked away, or the 1,000 times he didn't say what she needed to hear, but her nervous system remembers. Her body remembers. Her boundaries remember. Because trauma isn't just what happened, it's what never happened. And how long she had to pretend it didn't matter. So now, she's 35 and brilliant, but still hesitates before raising her hand in meetings. Still herself in relationships, still feels like she's one wrong move away from being left. She tells herself she's independent, but secretly longs to be held. She tells herself she doesn't need anyone, but still aches when the message is left on read. She tells herself she's over it, but still hears his silence in every compliment she doesn't believe. Because the father wound doesn't scream, it whispers. It whispers in her choices, in who she loves, and how much of herself she gives away. It whispers in her ability to trust, to rest, to receive without apologizing, and most painfully, it whispers in her worth. No matter how loud her achievements, her soul still listens for the voice that never came. You did well. You are enough. I see you. But instead, she learned to translate absence into omission. She became the perfectionist, the overgiver, the woman who gives 120% just to feel 70% safe, who chooses emotionally unavailable partners because they feel familiar. She thinks, if I can just love him enough, maybe this time I'll finally be chosen. But it's not about him. It never was. It's about her, and the part of her that still believes she must earn what should have always been freely given. Even at work, she's chasing that same gaze. The promotion isn't just a job, it's proof she matters. The applause isn't just validation, it's oxygen. Because deep down, she's not building a career, she's building a case for why she deserves to exist, why she is finally enough. But that hunger cannot be satisfied from the outside. No paycheck, no praise, no partner can touch a wound that lives beneath the skin of the soul. And here's the quiet truth that no one tells her. The person she's waiting for is not coming, not the father, not the partner, not the mentor, because the one who needs to arrive is her. The version of herself that no longer needs to chase love through achievement. The version of herself that remembers she was never unworthy, just unseen. This realization doesn't come all at once. It arrives like grief, like waves. It breaks your heart and saves you at the same time. Because the moment you stop waiting to be chosen, you begin the sacred work of choosing yourself. Carl Jung didn't just study the mind, he studied the soul. And he knew something most of us are never taught, that the parts of ourselves we reject don't disappear. They go underground. They form complexes, psychic clusters of emotion and memory that live in the unconscious. And when left unseen, they don't fade, they rule us. The father wound, in Jungian terms, often becomes a father complex. Not just a memory, but a magnetic field, one that draws us back, again and again, to the same type of relationships, the same emotional landscapes, the same ache with different faces. You meet someone new, but the old ache returns. You enter a new job, but the same need to prove yourself hijacks your peace. You meditate, journal, heal, and still wonder why one rejection can send you spiraling. It's not because you're weak. It's because the complex hasn't been made conscious yet. And as Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That's what this wound does. It disguises itself as fate, as bad luck, as I guess I'm just like this. But beneath that identity is a child still trying to resolve what she could never control. The inner child who still believes, if I can just do enough, fix enough, shine enough, he'll come back, he'll see me. But this is not about blame. This is about understanding. Because often, the father wasn't cruel, he was wounded. He wasn't cold, he was emotionally frozen. He didn't reject you. He never learned how to reflect love, because no one did it for him. And so, the wound passes down, like a family heirloom made of silence, a spiritual inheritance of distance, disconnection, and unmet longing. But what if you could break that pattern, not by fixing the past, but by rewriting your inner world? This is where Jung offers a new way forward. He invites you to meet not the man, but the archetype of the father within, not the flawed, human version, but the symbolic father, the one who sees, who protects, who affirms, who teaches you that your worth is not earned, but eternal. This inner father becomes the new mirror, not of perfection, but of presence, not of judgment, but of justice. He is the part of you that rises when the world tells you to shrink, that steadies you when fear tries to speak louder than your truth. And here's the secret. You don't have to wait for someone else to embody him. You can become him for yourself. Every time you speak the truth that shakes your voice, every time you say no without apologizing, every time you celebrate yourself without waiting for permission, you are stepping into the father archetype. You are becoming the presence that was once missing. And that, more than anything, is what heals the wound. because what was done to you was not your fault, but what you choose to do with that pain. That is where your power lives. You do not need your father's presence to rebuild what he never gave you. Need your own presence and the courage to turn inward, not with blame, but with compassion. This is the beginning of your return, the return to the part of you that never stopped waiting, the girl who watched the door, who held her breath, who became everything just to feel like something. She is still inside you, but she no longer needs to wait, because now you are here, and you can give her the words she needed all along. Not in fantasy, but in ritual. Not in performance, but in presence. So here's where we begin, gently, quietly, symbolically, because the soul doesn't heal through logic, it heals through ritual. First, write her a letter, not to your father, but to the girl inside you who didn't get what she needed. Tell her what no one told her, that she was never too sensitive, never too much, that her feelings weren't burdens, they were brilliance, that she didn't have to earn love, she was born worthy. Let your voice become the Father's voice. Let your protection become the structure she never had. Let your words become the mirror that never cracked. Second, speak the affirmation aloud, every day. I do not need to prove my worth to be loved. I do not need to perform to be safe. I am proud of who I am, because I see myself now. This isn't just a mantra, it's a spell of reversal, a reprogramming of the unconscious story that says you are only lovable when you disappear. Third, choose one act each day that makes you feel seen. Wear the bold color. Take up space in the meeting. Tell the truth, even if your voice trembles. This is not ego. This is reclamation. Because every time you step into visibility, you break the agreement that said you had to earn your right to exist. Every time you show up for yourself without shrinking, you declare, the Father within me has arrived. And when that energy awakens, when the protector, the affirmer, the holder of boundaries begins to live in you, the world outside begins to shift. You start attracting relationships that don't demand your silence. You start working in spaces that honor your voice. You start resting, trusting, receiving, without guilt, because the complex loses its power the moment you stop begging and start becoming. And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, that's not enough for me anymore. Sometimes it's walking away from a conversation that once made you beg for crumbs. Sometimes it's resting on a Wednesday afternoon without apologizing for your existence. These small rebellions against the pattern, they are sacred, they are holy, they are how the lineage ends with you. There comes a moment in every woman's healing when she stops chasing and starts returning to her voice, to her boundaries, to her body, to her own gaze, no longer desperate for a father's eyes to see her, no longer twisting herself into approval-shaped knots. She becomes the witness she always needed. This is the quiet revolution, the moment when a woman who spent her life over-giving, over-performing, over-functioning, finally lays down her sword and whispers, I don't have to fight for love anymore. She doesn't wait to be chosen. She chooses jobs that honor her energy, relationships that respect her spirit, friendships that don't ask her to shrink. She no longer stays where she's tolerated, because she's finally learned how to tolerate her own brilliance. She no longer clings to fluff, because she's no longer afraid of her own company. And when the echo of the old voice returns, because it always will, she doesn't collapse. She responds, with compassion, with presence, with truth. She says to herself, I know where this story comes from, and I love the girl who survived it, but I am not her anymore. Because now, she is the mother and the father to her inner child. She is the protector and the nurturer, the structure and the softness, the discipline and the devotion. That she is complete, not perfect, but whole. And from that wholeness, she begins to love in a new way, not as a seeker, but as a sovereign. She loves without performing. She receives without guilt. She asks without shame. She walks away without fear, and the world responds to her differently. Not because the world changed, but because she no longer negotiates her worth. This is the freedom no one can give you, because it was never theirs to give. It was yours, buried beneath the silence, waiting to be remembered. You are no longer a daughter waiting by the door. You are the woman who built the door, and who now walks through it, open, visible, powerful, free. You are not broken. You are not unlovable. You are not too late. You are simply waking up from the trance of unworthiness, from the spell that told you love must be earned, not remembered. from the generational silence that taught you to apologize for existing. You are not your father's absence. You are not your childhood ache. You are not the reflection that was never offered. You are the presence that arrived. Anyway, the love that survived, the woman who came back for herself. And if no one ever told you, let this moment be the first time. I see you. You matter. You are enough, not because of what you do, not because of who stays, but because of who you are, and who you've always been beneath the silence. This is the end of the audition. You are not here to earn love. You are here to be love. So close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, feel the pulse of your own becoming, and remember, you are no longer the girl waiting for permission. You are the woman who walks with power, with softness, with sovereignty. You are no longer chasing the father. You have become the home. Welcome back.